So how exactly did the Raccoon City Police Department fall, and what catalyst caused this supposed beacon of safety and shelter become ravaged by zombies and monsters? And what about all the police officers that was supposed to man this place, keeping it afloat during the peak of the Raccoon City incident? All this will be answered in this video, so stay tuned to the end as we explore how exactly the RPD station fell before Resident Evil 3 and how that could influence our experience in RE3 Remake. Anyways, before we do get started with the video, I just want to say my name is DeVuH, and I do cover a lot of Resident Evil and other survival horror content on my channel. So if you guys enjoy these types of videos, then please feel free to smash that like and subscribe button for more content like this in the future, and also possibly adding me both on Instagram and on Twitter, where you guys can message me there personally at any time. Alright, so let's go ahead and start off with the aspect of the overall setting of the RPD station and why it wasn't so conducive to be used as a safety shelter during the Raccoon City incident. Because originally, the RPD that we knew now was actually a museum that was converted into a police station, explaining the winding corridors, the many different passageways, and the available keys that was used to unlock some of the many doors in the precinct, explaining the maze-like puzzle-solving aspects that we went through during our gameplay. Even some displays of statues and other artwork was a significant aspect to this place. But with all that, in a way, this wasn't constructed to be used as a safe haven during the zombie outbreak, because with all the unattended windows and entrances, it was difficult for anyone to barricade all the openings, with clear examples were shown in the original Resident Evil 2 and how the West Side Hall was famous for all the wooden barricades of the windows. Also, unbeknownst to most of the police officers, the secret passage to the sewers doesn't help with the situation, since many BOWs are crawling to get in the RPD station, and in both the original RE2 and Resident Evil 2 Remake, it's shown that all the shutters wasn't enough to keep any of the undead from coming in, where depending on how we play, and if we connect some of the wiring to the electrical panels near the window, the zombies would break through and swarm the hallways of this police station. And in the Remake's version, we get to see how helpless some of the officers were, even when there were shutters or barricades that was supposed to help them. So overall, the setting for the police station and the many openings and secret passageways for the zombies and monsters doesn't help with the situation, which made it ironic that in RE2 Remake, they had a citywide broadcast announcement to head to the RPD station for shelter.
Attention all citizens. Due to the citywide outbreak, you are advised to take shelter at the Raccoon City Police Station. Free food and medical supplies will be provided to everyone in need.
Oh my god, this is so unreal.
Which now brings us to the police officers themselves and how ill-prepared they were to deal with a T-virus outbreak, because the first factor would be the utter denial of the allegations that the surviving STARS members claimed after Resident Evil 1, letting both the public and their comrades in the police station know all about Umbrella's experiments using the T-virus, and all the grisly murders in the Arklay Mountains was caused by the zombies and monsters. But to the fault of the people of the RPD station, they didn't believe the STARS members, questioning Chris Redfield, Jill Valentine, Barry Byrne, Rebecca Chambers, and Brad Vickers, and eventually shutting them away. Also, it doesn't help that the chief of police, Brian Irons, was working alongside the Umbrella Corporation and disbanded the remaining members, silencing their claims and painting them to be incompetent with the way they handled the mission during RE1. But we'll get more into Chief Irons in a second, because he'll play a large role in the downfall of the RPD station.
I was about to stuff her.
Anyways, going back to the police officers, after ignoring the STARS members and all their pleas, their next mistake was being completely ignorant of the growing rumblings of cannibalistic attacks in Raccoon City, not preparing themselves for the horror that was about to ensue. Instead, they went about their lives and ignored the fact that more and more people are starting to turn into zombies, which would eventually outnumber any police personnel once at its peak, which was demonstrated in Resident Evil Outbreak, and how not just the civilians, but also the police officers weren't aware of the zombie outbreak. Which now brings us to the second point, which is their lack of preparedness and the utter disorganization once they found out about the T-virus outbreak, because by this time, a majority of the population has already been infected, outnumbering the police force massively, causing most of the RPD staff to take shelter and start to try to handle the situation at hand. But again, this is where the lack of an organized leader came in, because with the sheer chaos that was going outside the RPD station, it was only a matter of time before the many zombies and monsters would eventually make it to the police department. But the police staff was not prepared in this aspect as well, having no time to gather weapons or ammo for the chaos, and the disorganized mess among the staff made the heightened confusion become a factor, with the Resident Evil Chinese manhwa depicting this, explaining why it was so hard for the officers to get anything done, let alone stand up against the hordes of zombies that were making their way to the RPD station. Because even Brad Vickers mentioned in the original Resident Evil 3 that the police force wasn't trained for a situation like this.
Brad, hang in there. Why isn't someone doing something about this?
I didn't know you were still alive, Jill. The police aren't trained for this kind of situation. What could they do?
Also, remember that I mentioned Chief Irons earlier? Well, that psychopath was conveniently missing during the police scramble, leaving the officers without a leader, but then suddenly had the bright idea to make things worse in the RPD station by causing more fear and panic among his officers after finally showing himself again, ordering them false claims and keeping them from being organized at any point. Also, it doesn't help the fact that he decided to cut the connection to the outside world, causing the police to be completely isolated and dealing with a zombie outbreak on their own, adding the fact that Chief Irons was manipulating some of the staff by making them hide away a lot of their weapons and ammos throughout the precinct, alleging that it will prevent the seizures of their cache due to the chaos outside the RPD station, which would further limit their supplies to fight the hordes of zombies and monsters. And the final straw that Chief Irons would pull to make things worse was he decided to hunt down any survivors in the police station, feeding into his habit of taxidermy and using people as his animals for his sick leisure, with some notes found in RE2 stating that he enjoyed killing one of the officers by the name of Ed as he watched his fellow colleague die right in front of him. So with all this happening at once, the remaining police force decided to organize as much as they can, gathering most of the officers to combat the many zombies in the streets of Raccoon City, which we see in the opening cutscene of Resident Evil 3 as we watch the RPD officers hold off as best as they can, only to find out that it was already too late, with the zombie population becoming too overwhelming for them to stop. This in turn would leave the remaining officers inside the police station completely unprepared, because now, not only do they lack the weapons and ammo, but also the majority of their staff has already been wiped out, with no means of communicating to the outside world, and it doesn't help that their police chief is hunting them down as well, which only gives them a few choices left, which is either stay inside the police station and hope that someone would help them, or they could look for that secret passage inside the station and try to make their way into the sewers, which could lead to the outside of the city limits. But before doing that, they would have to split up and look for the clues that show exactly where this hidden passage is, using small files and maps that indicate that it may be under the large statue of the main hall, which was both shown in Resident Evil Outbreak and RE3 Remake.
Leave it to me. I promise I'll be back with help.
But even with this info, it was almost still impossible to roam around the police station without encountering any zombies, and especially the lickers, because with these creatures, with their heightened senses and their razor sharp claws, it really made it difficult to just run past them. Anyways, with all the factors that surround the downfall of the RPD station, with its lack of communicating to the outside world, to its mishandling of the situation about the T-virus outbreak, the ignorance of the police force when being told about the events of RE1, Chief Irons and his many psychopaths psychopathic tendencies, and the many monsters cornering this department made it almost a guarantee that this would have happened regardless, which now brings us to how this would play right before Resident Evil 3 Remake and how this could impact Jill Valentine during her journey, because prior to Jill making it to the police station, it was already barricaded and many have tried to escape and find the secret passage to get out of the city, which in turn would leave just Marvin and Elliot to man the station. But unfortunately for both officers, we know how it ends, with Elliot losing his life in the early portion of RE2 Remake.
I got you. Give me your other hand.
While Marvin Branaugh on the other hand would be found laying unconscious during the original RE3. So in Resident Evil 3 Remake, this could all change if we're gonna take RE2 Remake into consideration, because remember that they did give Marvin a larger role in this new version of RE2, regardless if he did get a lot of screen time or not. So with Resident Evil 3 Remake on the horizon, I can see Marvin actually playing a larger role during the RPD station portion of the game, especially after finding out that Carlos was heading towards the STARS unit's office, significantly changing how we initially first see him compared to the original RE3.
Where am I?
Relax. You're fine.
If you say so, but my head feels like it's about to explode. Anyway, name's Carlos. Glad to meet you, lady.
So there could be a possibility of Marvin, Carlos, Jill, and Brad working all together in the RPD station, with the only questions that can be brought up is if Marvin was actually injured prior to Jill making it to the police station, or will Capcom change the storyline and we'll get to see how exactly Marvin gets hurt and would advise Jill and Carlos to escape the city on their own. Also adding the fact that Jill would make it to the STARS unit's office in the original RE3 and would be surprised to hear Carlos and his message over the airwaves, which now could be changed in RE3 Remake, and Carlos meeting her in the STARS unit's office, similar to how Leon and Claire reunited after being torn apart in the early moments of Resident Evil 2. But one of the most significant moments that we know on how the RPD station fell was with the BOWs being sent to the police station to hunt down any survivors, with Chief Irons mentioning this in the original RE2 to the countless evidence of Nemesis breaking through walls in the RE2 Remake, which now has Jill Valentine traversing through the very corridors that caused the many police officers to lose their lives, where she has to pick up what's left of the RPD station and try to make it out alive during the Raccoon City incident. Anyways, what do you guys think about the downfall of the RPD station, and how would the small details about this department changes Jill's journey during RE3 Remake? Please let me know your thoughts and questions on the comment section down below. Also, if you guys enjoy character background analysis and lore discussions, then please don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button for more videos like this in the future. Anyways, thank you guys so much, and as always, you guys have a great rest of your day, and this is Hey DeVuH, and I'll see you guys on the next video.